Welcome back to another video on just care and maintenance for your SVX. Previously I've worked on the instrument binnacle. Today what we're going to do is look at some of the guides that for your windows. The SVX has a total of 4 guides. There's 2 outer guides and 2 inner guides. Now these are just simply felt padded guides, and over sort of 25-30 years that felt will build up with dirt, grime, dust, and it will start to, as you can see here, I'll show you very shortly, the window will start to scratch. Now if it gets really bad, it's really hard to buff this out, so it's important that you try and provide some maintenance to these. And there's 2 options. One is to remove those, give them a good clean, make sure that they're in good condition, and then replace them. The guides themselves are no longer available from Subaru, so I was able to source some new old stock over the last sort of couple of years, and I'm fortunate enough to have a few, so I'm able to replace these with new old stock. Now if you don't have access to that, then the option is to get some felt and glue that onto the existing pads. It's something that many of the members of the community that own the SVX, they actually do that. So what we're going to do is today is have a look at some of the parts. Now this is one of the inner guides. This one is in fact from my driver's side door. Inside there's a letter A. A is in the Australian right-hand drive vehicles or driver's side. On the passenger side it says B. Now as you'll see, the felt on here, it gets a little bit worn. You can probably notice it gets a little bit shiny. This one here is salvageable to some extent. The alternative is to remove this, get some felt and glue that on, and but it's I'm fortunate enough to have a couple of new ones. So as you can sort of see here, it's not a hard part. It's just simply a bracket that mounts to the body, and then there's this part here. So that's what we're going to replace today. And then there's the outer ones. Now you'll notice that this scratching here, what happens is eventually this felt will actually come away from the guide itself, and then it's left with just simply plastic. Now if any grime gets in there, it'll start to scratch. This one is the outer, and it doesn't have a bracket. It simply has a glued pad that sits on the back of this that presses into the door panel and holds it in position. Then this felt obviously acts against the glass to make sure that it remains in position to slot within the area. So today what we're going to do is show the process of removing and replacing, or if you need to, your opportunity to clean and look after these, so that it minimizes the chance of any scratching on your vehicle. Now to do this, it is quite a extensive process. You do need to remove the interior trim. You do need to remove this glass, and the reason for that is the access points to the outer pads can't be made because of that glue that's glued in there. So to get into that, you actually need to remove this trim, but to remove this trim you need to remove the wing mirror. So there's quite a few steps involved just to service those particular clips. So today we're going to go through that process. Let's go. So let's have a closer look from what's in the service manual. We'll be looking at in this case, the passenger door for Australian delivered, or the left-hand side of the vehicle. This door here is the right-hand side of the vehicle, but we'll be simply removing this door card from the door panel. We'll be removing this trim here. We'll be removing the rear vision mirror so we can get to that trim. But to get to this off here, there are 2 screws here. There's one underneath the door handle, underneath a little plastic panel, and then there's 2 screws just here which holds the door panel on. There's a bunch of clips underneath, we'll remove those or pop those out carefully so as not to break them, and then we'll be able to get the door card off. In behind the door card there is a plastic sheet, a dust guard. We'll need to remove that. Just do that very, very carefully. Try to retain all the glue that's in there so that we can then access the screws to remove the glass and also some wires and so forth in here. So let's get to it. I do apologize for the sounds in the background. It is an industrial estate, so you will hear some other sort of working machinery in the background. All right, so we'll be working on the trim panel removal, and to do this, the first step is to, where the door handle is, underneath that there is that plastic cover that sits over the top of a screw. We'll need to remove that screw with a Phillips head screwdriver. Then there is a mat that's in here. Now, if your vehicle has been untouched, then this mat may be glued down, so carefully remove that. My vehicle itself, it's floating. So there's two screws here. There's the one underneath the door handle, but then against near the hinge mechanism there's two more screws, Phillips head screws. You'll need to remove those also. From that, we'll be looking at removing and popping all these clips that are around the outside, and then finally, when you have removed all that, the door card can then be lifted in this corner. Careful to make sure that the door handle slots out through here, and then we're moving on to, once the door card is off the metal frame of the door, you can then remove the clips that are holding in that electrical wiring. So let's go through that. Now, just a special note, my history with this particular screw has not been good. It is, sometimes it can fall down into this gap here and then fall into where the plastic area is. So just be aware of that when you're pulling it out. It's happened a couple of times for me. So once you've got it, and just like that. So here we're going to remove the felt pad. As you can see under here, there's two screws, just one just here. And these ones don't fall anywhere, which is a good thing. It's just that door handle one. So once we've removed these, there's a metal bracket that sits behind this, and that's what's holding that part of the trim on. So these are the two fasteners, two Phillips head screws that bond the front of the door. I've loosened this one already down the bottom here, and they come out. So once these are out, the last part is all the clips, and we'll go through that now. So under here, there's a whole bunch of plastic clips. The idea is to pull that, and we're just simply going to work our way along the bottom and make sure that they're all off. And this door handle here, as you can see, if you lift the door card and then carefully make sure that you take consideration of the two wires that are connected down there. So I'll disconnect those. So now, once we've removed the door card, the process is to remove the electrical clips. This one is for the door light, and this one is for the switch to drive the window. They can go free crucially, you'll notice that these are all the plastic clips, and there's my screw that fell out of here. Okay, the next step we're going to do is remove the sealing cover. Now that's a plastic dust cover that goes around the door. But to do that, we do need to remove a trim bracket. This bracket just sits behind the door handle. It's just 2 screws. We need to then go through the process of carefully, I kind of use one of these plastic trim removal tools to just get underneath the sealing, and it's sort of like, it's like a bit like a spatula. And be careful not to break or tear this cover. It's very important as being part of the dust cover for the door. And let's do that. So what we're going to do here is, before we remove this plastic cover here, we need to remove this trim. So this is the bracket that holds the door handle on. Once I've removed the plastic, I'll put these screws back in so that I know which screws go where. It's just a little technique I like to do. You can bag them if you like. And voila, that's off. To remove this plastic trim, here's the sealant. Work your way around, making sure you try and retrieve all the sealant that you can. And clearly this one's been taken off in the past. So let's just go through, remove all that. Once you've removed most of it, the crucial part is to try and keep this as straight as possible. These cables here, they feed through a small hole here, and as you can see here, there's the opening for the door handle. So once you've removed all of that, try and keep that sheet as flat as possible and store that so that it doesn't pick up anything. We have our first look at the guides that we're going to be replacing or repairing. You've got the inner guides here. You'll notice there's a letter B. This is the left-hand side. There will be an A on the right-hand side, and it's this angle here that differentiates the two. On the other side of the glass, and hence the reason why we need to remove it, are the outer guides, and we'll get through that. But this gives us an opportunity also to clean a lot of the felt that sits behind here and so forth. So let's go through that process. Now, surprisingly, one of the steps that we have to do is remove the inner remote assembly. The crucial part here is that this rod holder here, there's a plastic clip here, but at the end there is a connector, and this connector has a particular process. I'd like you to carefully watch the video to show how this is easily removed. You do run the risk of breaking this clip if you don't carefully go through this process. There's just 3 screws here, and then this whole inner remote assembly will be able to be removed, and then that gives us more access to be able to remove the glass. Once we've removed that, we'll go through and remove the glass. Now, as per this section here, we've removed the trim panel, we've removed the sealing cover, and this is the step we're doing. We're removing the inner remote assembly. Once we've done that, we need to completely close the door window glass so that it's all the way up, and disconnect the door mirror harness and connector, and remove the connector holding the covering hole. That's this part here. So we're going to go through each of these processes very shortly, and then we can move on to the actual removal of the glass. So here we have the 3 Phillips screws that we need to remove so we can remove this harness. This goes through to a plastic clip, and then in here, this is the clip that I'll show you how to remove very shortly. So this is the clip that we're talking about. This particular clip that sits here it moves so that we can open it up, and in reverse the clip itself takes the wire from the door handle and it goes inside that part just there. Once that's pressed in all the way, it's very difficult to do this with holding a torch so that you can see inside the door handle, but if we carefully just pull this wire out, once that wire is in place, this slots down and locks over the top of the wire. So this is a little bit fiddly, let's put it that way. So the next part that we need to do is we need to remove this section here. Now this section here holds the wires to the electric switch for the windows, and also the power for the windows themselves. That's what this here is. Now this section here, this is a it's got two clips, one at the top and one at the bottom, and they will just so as you can see there, there's the clip there, there's the clip there, there's also another one at the back here. So that's what you need to do to be able to get this out. The reason why you need to do this, free this up area here, is we will need to remove the speaker. For me personally, I'm going to work on that as well. But this switch gear here, we need to have this area as free as possible, so when the glass comes up and down we can access that. It's just part of the steps. We will need to wind up the window, so we'll need the switch and we still need the power on to bring the glass here up a bit to about this point here, so that we can access, there'll be two bolts, and we need that so that we can actually disconnect the glass. So we'll do that very shortly. So the next strip we're going to remove is this outer strip along here. Now this strip is actually held in place by a couple of plastic screws. There's one about here and there's another one here. So we need to remove those. The good news is that there are actually covering holes to allow you to get a screwdriver in to remove those. On my door there's actually a little temporary plug over the top of it that's easily removed. There's also on the side here behind the mirror, there is a couple of plastic grommets. Now these are held in place fairly easily to remove. Now they can be pulled out with a trim removal tool such as this, but you'll need to remove those back so you can access the three screws that hold this mirror on. So before we remove this, we have to remove the mirror. So I've just removed the clips from in here. There are three clips. There's one here, one down there, and one up here. The little plastic clips, they look like this, and they're relatively straightforward to remove. Once you've removed those clips, then you can sort of see there's the three screws that are required to be removed to take the wing mirror off. Now this is the reason why you need to take out this bracket here. You need to disconnect the clip for the wing mirror and have that aside so that you can then take off this trim that's up here. So once you've removed the three screws from the back here, be careful with this process here. Over time it might just be a little bit sticky to get off, so this will come off. There's a little clip, there it is there. So see this little clip here? That actually holds just in there, and then the last part is carefully bring up the cable out of that hole in there. And this will give you the opportunity now to be able to remove this. As you can see, the wing mirror covers that slightly. So without removing this, you can't get that trim off. So we're going to be removing two clips. One is here and one is over there. I've just removed this one here. It's a two-part process. This screw here screws into that, which expands those. That sits in behind this. Now we're going to show you the other one over there. So crucially, just be careful. This is a plastic screw. Just take that out. When it's all the way out, don't drop it down the door. So that's that one screw there. Then I can use my trim tool. That will just pop out like that. And now we can start to take this off. So this is a bit of a roll. So you sort of roll it and wiggle it, and it'll slowly come off. And these are the primary two that are holding it down. Once that's off, we now have all that trim off. So now we can access these other guides which are down there once this glass is out, but we need to remove that first. So now what we're going to do, now that we've removed that, we're going to raise the glass so that there's a little bit of a plastic guide, so it's about the center, and you'll be able to see two 10mm bolts that hold this in place. Now I've left the door card just tucked into the footwell of the passenger seat so that I can still operate the electrics to allow me to raise and lower the glass. And this is important because otherwise we can't get to the outer plastic clips. So I'll turn the car on and we'll raise that window so that it's up to the midpoint, enable us to remove that. So up comes the glass, there's that plastic guide there. When that gets to about the middle part, you'll now be able to see the two screws that we need to replace. So now we're going to remove these two 10mm here. Only needs a mild extension. Once they're out, we'll be in a position to remove the glass. Now, the crucial part about this glass is that we're taking it outside the window. So it's going to come up. So we're just making our way up. Just slowly. On the outside. Trying not to foul on the mechanism that's there. And the glass comes out. Now obviously put this down carefully and place it on some cloths to avoid any scratching. So we're now at the point where we can start removing the guides. There's these two here. Now these are pretty straightforward to remove. They do have the ability to slide side to side, and it makes it go tighter or looser against the glass. So that is a slight adjustment. I find that I just simply use the old existing circle, which tells me where the guides were, but you could sort of certainly put a little a marker pen once you've removed these. The harder ones are in fact these inner ones here and here. Now the reason why they're more difficult to remove is they're in fact glued on, and you'll see the felt on this is completely gone, and there's the felt on this one, and this is the part that, if you remember, there was that scratching. So what we're trying to do is obviously fix that. Now given that just simply the glue's come away, you know, you could actually re-glue that, but as I've got some new ones, I'm just going to replace them completely. I won't throw these away. So this is what the guides look like, and as you can see here at the back here, there's it's glued, and there's these two clips. So these clips should simply, you press those in and it should be able to pop out, but because they're glued on, that's just about impossible. So what I try and do is I try and come in from the side through here and then slowly pry that away. Now to do this, it is a little bit tricky, and I'm going to just do it off camera because to get the screwdriver in here just takes a little bit of effort. But in essence, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get our screwdriver in this point here and then slowly move it along, and then offer this one as a bit of a wedge, and then it'll simply peel out, and the whole time also having to compress these to actually pull it out. But once we've got the glue area off, these will come out. So I've just got this clip out, and as you can sort of see here, there is all this glue residue on the back here, and this is that felt that has actually come away. So I'll need to remove this. I just find just a dabbing of methylated spirits and a bit of abrasive rubbing gets rid of most of it, and then just clean it up afterwards. A little bit of paint will come off as a result of the methylated spirits, but it's negligible, and it's also on the inside of the car. Just be aware of that. I'm now going to go on and do the other one. So now that the window's out, all the brackets are out, I've gone through some mineral turpentine and cleaned up behind here, but it's also given me the opportunity to clean this section that would otherwise not be accessible, just for the longer interests of preserving the car. I've also cleaned the glass, and I've cleaned this sill along here so that it should last for a lot longer. So what we're going to do now is replace the guides. So these are the inner guides, these ones here. So the two inner guides and then the two outer guides. So as you can see here, the crucial part is this reference here is B. B is the left-hand side of the vehicle, A is the right-hand side, whereas in regards to the outer assembly, there is no difference between them. So in performing that, what we're going to have a look at is taking those out, placing these into those respective areas, but most importantly, when we have a look at these inner ones, you'll notice that, sorry, the outer ones, there's just this little sticky backing tape, so we'll need to take that out. The other point is, from my observation with these, it looks as though that is the top of the door, so any water that comes down is then pushed away. So that's my observation. If you can sort of see that it's got a bit of a curl in there. Apart from that, there's no other identification factors that suggest that one is top, one is bottom, but that sort of would make sense. So now that all the parts put back on, making sure that the grab handle is on, the plastic is all around and making sure it's not covering up the buttonholes. The electrical cables are all tucked back in, the wing mirror is back on, and the grab handle is also reinstalled, obviously the reverse of what it was done before. We can then put the outer shell back on. So the glass is all installed, all the panels, the interior trim, all the electrics are all connected back up, and we have a functioning window. Success! And hopefully this has proved helpful.